I feel like we are taught from a very early age to think about money the exact same way we think about physics.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's a hard science.
Right. We treat it like it has these strict rules, formulas, the absolute laws of supply and demand.
The indisputable math of compound interest.
Exactly. The general assumption is just that you plug your income and your expenses into this pristine spreadsheet, and it just magically spits out the mathematically correct answer for your life.
And, I mean, that framework makes a lot of sense when you consider how financial literacy is usually taught.
Yeah.
It's basically treated as a branch of mathematics.
Yeah.
We just assume that if you memorize the right data sets and follow the formulas,
And, avoid bad addition.
right, avoid bad addition,
Yeah.
then financial success is essentially guaranteed. It basically frames money as a test of intelligence.
But then you actually step out of the classroom and into the real world, and suddenly that pristine spreadsheet it doesn't mean a thing.
It really doesn't.
Because financial success isn't actually a hard science at all. It's a soft skill.
Yeah, that's the core of it.
It has remarkably little to do with your IQ or your ability to calculate derivatives.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely everything to do with how you behave.
Which is a huge paradigm shift for most people.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a massive stack of book summaries, reviews, and psychological research surrounding Morgan Housel's best-selling book, The Psychology of Money.
It's such a great book.
It's incredible. And our mission for you today is to completely flip the script on how you evaluate your own financial life.
Which is just a vital shift in perspective. We're going to break down the deeply human behaviors, the emotional blind spots, and the evolutionary biases that actually dictate your financial decision-making.
Because the math part is actually easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. The technical side of money, the math, is incredibly straightforward. Earn more than you spend, invest the difference.
Right.
It's the human side, the
Yeah.
greed, the insecurity, the innate desire to signal our status to other people that makes it so painfully complicated.
So true.
This discussion should offer you a totally new lens through which to view not just your bank account, but human behavior itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to figure out how we actually should be behaving with money, we first have to tackle a really uncomfortable reality.
Right.
Why do incredibly smart, rational people do completely irrational things with their cash?
It's the million-dollar question.
Literally. There is this fascinating statistic in our reading today that really anchors this.
Oh, the global economy one.
Yes. So your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what has actually happened in the global economy over time.
Right. A tiny microscopic fraction.
Exactly. But those exact same micro-experiences dictate about 80% of how you think the world works.
And that concept is the core of what Housel calls the no one is crazy principle.
Which I love.
Yeah, it's so freeing. When you watch someone making a financial decision that looks utterly bizarre or reckless to you, you have to remember they aren't making that decision in a vacuum.
Right.
And they certainly aren't making it on a spreadsheet. They are taking the limited information they have in that specific moment, and they're filtering it through their own highly unique mental model of the world.
A mental model that was likely scrambled together at the dinner table when they were kids.
Exactly.
It's shaped by the generation they were born into, the exact economic climate of their early 20s, the marketing they absorbed.
And their own ego?
Totally.
Yeah.
A view about money that seems completely outrageous to, say, a millennial tech worker might make perfect logical sense to someone who grew up during the hyperinflation of the 1970s.
Which means our baseline expectations of risk and reward are fundamentally subjective.
Right.
If you came of age during a massive decade-long bull market, your neurological wiring regarding investing is completely different from someone who watched their parents lose their home during a brutal recession.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So people do crazy things with money,
Right.
but the underlying mechanism isn't insanity. They're just reacting to the world exactly as they've been conditioned to survive it.
Okay, but I struggle with the line between healthy ambition and outright greed, though.
Sure.
How does this framework explain the darker side of financial behavior? The text brings up guys like Bernie Madoff and Rajat Gupta.
Right, the extreme example.
Yeah, I mean, Madoff, before the massive Ponzi scheme was exposed, was running a totally legitimate, highly respected market-making business.
And a very profitable one.
Right.
Right.
That legitimate business was generating $25 to $50 million a year in pure profit.
Staggering.
He didn't build a fraudulent empire because he was broke and desperate to feed his family. He risked everything when he was already vastly wealthier than almost everyone on Earth.
Yeah.
What psychological mechanism causes someone to do that?
Well, that introduces the total absence of the concept of enough.
Enough.
Right. Madoff and Gupta didn't steal to fulfill a physiological or even a basic lifestyle need.
Because they already had yachts and mansions.
Exactly. They risked everything they had and everything they actually needed for money they absolutely did not have and objectively did not need.
Wow.
It's a total collapse of behavioral control. When the psychological craving for more outpaces any rational utility that the money provides, the spreadsheet just goes right out the window.
But, I mean, aren't we taught that striving for more is the entire point of a capitalist system?
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to grow, innovate, and want better lives. How do you square that cultural conditioning with being satisfied?
It's tough.
Because when the reading dives into this idea of the moving goalpost, it really highlights a terrifying trap.
It really is a trap.
It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water. You think acquiring the next big thing, the promotion, the bigger house, will finally satisfy you.
It never does.
No, the act of acquiring it is the exact mechanism that increases your craving for more. You just get thirstier.
And what's fascinating here is the underlying engine powering that constant thirst. It's social comparison.
Oh, yeah.
We rarely want to just be wealthy in a vacuum. We want to be wealthier than the people in our immediate social circle.
Right, it's relative.
Exactly.
Oh.
And the danger of social comparison is that the ceiling is completely invisible.
There's always a bigger fish.
Always. There will always be someone with a bigger boat, a faster car, or a more prestigious job title. If your definition of success relies on being at the absolute top of that ladder, you're playing a game with no actual end state.
So if this moving goalpost guarantees we'll never be satisfied by just acquiring more stuff to show off, it means our entire cultural definition of what money is for is completely backwards.
Precisely.
We have to fundamentally redefine wealth. And there is a brilliant psychological trap outlined in the text called the men in the car paradox.
I love this one. This paradox perfectly encapsulates how broken our internal signaling system is when it comes to status.
It really exposes the irony of consumerism. Like, think about a time you were walking down the street and someone pulled up to a red light in a roaring $100,000 sports car.
Sure.
What actually goes through your mind? You almost never look at the person driving and think, wow, that specific individual is so cool and successful. I deeply admire them.
No, you completely ignore the driver.
Exactly. You project yourself into the driver's seat. You think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I was so cool.
Which is so funny because the buyer purchases the wildly expensive item because they want to signal to the world that they're worthy of respect.
Right.
But the onlookers don't use the luxury item to admire the owner. They just use the item as a benchmark for their own fantasies.
It's like the expensive possession acts as a mirror, not a spotlight.
Exactly, a mirror. The driver thinks they're buying admiration, but they've actually just bought a prop that makes everyone else think about themselves.
It completely defeats the purpose of the purchase.
Totally.
You spend a fortune to be noticed, and you just become a mannequin for someone else's daydream.
Yep.
The text points out something so simple but profound here. Humility, kindness, and empathy will organically generate significantly more respect from your peers than horsepower or designer clothes ever will.
Which brings us to an incredibly important distinction made in the analysis, the behavioral difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Right, because we use those words interchangeably.
Culturally, yeah, we use them as synonyms.
Yeah.
But psychologically, they are total opposites.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, being rich is entirely about current income.
The $100,000 car is rich.
Right. Because even if that person is drowning in high-interest debt to afford the monthly lease payment, they still require a high level of current income to make that payment happen.
That makes sense.
Rich people are very easy to spot. They often go out of their way to ensure they are seen. It's a highly visible external state.
But wealth is entirely hidden.
Yes.
It's the income not spent. It is the sports car not purchased, the diamond watch not bought, the first-class upgrade gracefully declined. Wealth consists of financial assets that haven't yet been converted into tangible stuff. Its entire value lies in offering you hidden options, flexibility, and the potential for future growth.
And that invisibility is exactly why it is so difficult for people to actually build wealth.
Because you can't see it.
Right. Humans are phenomenal at learning through imitation. We look at what our successful peers are doing, and we copy it. But how do you imitate a behavior you physically cannot see?
Here's where it gets really interesting because we are actively trained by social media and television to fake it till we make it.
Oh, absolutely.
We see influencers spending money, so our brains wire together the concepts of spending money and having money.
Which is a huge trap.
Right. Someone might finance a lifestyle they can't afford just to post pictures of a luxury steering wheel online. But spending money to show people how much money you have is literally the fastest mathematical way to have less money.
Yeah. Saving money, fundamentally, is simply the gap between your ego and your income.
The gap between your ego and your income. I love that.
If you can suppress the psychological need to visually prove your success to strangers, you can increase your wealth regardless of how high your income actually is.
I can hear the listener asking a very logical question right now, though.
Okay, what's that?
If true wealth is only the things we don't see and the money we don't spend, then what on earth is the point of accumulating it?
Right.
If we aren't supposed to buy the sports car or the mansion, what is the money actually doing for us?
It is buying the ultimate currency, which is time.
Time.
Yeah, the psychological research is incredibly clear on this. The absolute highest dividend that money can ever pay is the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today.
That sounds amazing.
Right. It is about autonomy. Studies consistently show that having a strong internal sense of control over your own life is a more dependable predictor of positive well-being and happiness than any objective financial metric you can measure.
So it's shifting the goal from acquiring luxury goods to acquiring autonomy. I appreciate how the book breaks this down into very practical milestones, too, these escalating degrees of freedom. It doesn't start with yachts. It starts very small.
Oh, very small.
A little bit of unseen wealth, like a basic emergency fund, means you can take a sick day when you have the flu without spiraling into a panic about missing rent.
Yes.
That small amount of money literally buys you the freedom to recover.
And as you accumulate a bit more wealth, the scope of your autonomy expands.
Right.
Say you get laid off from your job. You don't have to desperately accept the very first potentially toxic job offer that comes your way just to survive.
You have breathing room?
Exactly. You can actually wait a few months to find a role that fits your career path.
And as that wealth grows even further, you gain the power to proactively accept a job with a lower salary but significantly more purpose.
Or a job with a shorter commute so you can see your kids.
Right. You are literally buying back chunks of your life.
There is a fantastic historical example used to illustrate this high-level autonomy. John D. Rockefeller.
Okay, the oil guy.
Right. Rockefeller was famously one of the wealthiest men in history, but his actual day-to-day job wasn't physical labor.
Right, he wasn't out there digging.
No, he didn't drill wells or load trains. His job was to make a few highly critical decisions. His deliverable was generated entirely inside his head.
Wow.
Consequently, he spent the vast majority of his time sitting in silence, just thinking, or taking long walks.
Just thinking.
Yeah. When you have ultimate control over your time, you create the space for that kind of high-level strategic thinking.
Applying that to modern life really exposes how we trap ourselves.
We really do.
We typically use a raise at work to upgrade our lifestyle, right? We buy a bigger house with a bigger mortgage, but by taking on that massive debt, we actually surrender control of our time back to our employer.
You're locking yourself in.
Exactly. We literally trade away the highest emotional dividend money pays just to get a nicer dashboard in our car.
And if we connect this to the mechanics of how you actually achieve that freedom, it requires us to understand two completely different behavioral skill sets.
Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy.
Exactly. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are not the same thing. In fact, they require almost diametrically opposed psychological traits.
The author describes this as needing a barbell personality, which honestly sounds like a contradiction.
Well, it is a cognitive contradiction, which is why it's so rare.
Right.
To get wealthy, you need to take risks. You have to be deeply optimistic about the future. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to aggressively pursue opportunities.
You have to believe you can beat the odds.
Exactly. But to stay wealthy, that requires a complete pivot.
You have to change your entire mindset.
You do. It requires frugality, it requires humility, and most importantly, it requires a healthy, persistent dose of paranoia.
The ability to survive. I mean, if you had to distill the entire secret of financial success into a single word, it's survival.
Yes, because surviving means acknowledging that what you've made can be taken away by unpredictable market forces. It means admitting that at least a portion of your past success was likely due to luck, which means you cannot rely on it to repeat indefinitely.
This perfectly explains the fascinating comparison the text makes between Warren Buffett and Jim Simons.
Oh, this is a great comparison.
Right. So Jim Simons is a legendary mathematician who founded a highly secretive hedge fund.
Very successful.
Mathematically, Simons has the highest annual returns of basically any investor ever. His annual returns blow Warren Buffett's out of the water.
Warren Buffett is significantly wealthier.
Exactly. Why? It's not because Buffett is better at picking stocks. It's his time horizon.
Right.
There is a mind-blowing stat here. Out of Warren Buffett's roughly $84.5 billion net worth at the time of the book's writing,
Oh.
$81.5 billion of it came after his 65th birthday.
After he turned 65. That perfectly illustrates the confounding nature of exponential compounding.
It's just wild.
And it's why our human brains fail so miserably at grasping it. Evolutionarily, we are wired to think linearly. Our ancestors tracked linear distances and linear food supplies. We simply do not have the innate cognitive hardware to intuitively understand how rapidly numbers grow when they compound upon themselves over 50 or 60 years.
So Buffett's ultimate secret isn't some magical stock-picking formula.
Not at all. It's the fact that he has been investing for 3/4 of a century and prioritized survival so he never blew up his account.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here, though, because I know what a lot of people are thinking.
Sure, go for it.
Looking at that mathematically, wouldn't the logical takeaway be to figure out Jim Simons' algorithm? Shouldn't we be trying to maximize our annual returns instead of just sitting there being bored for 50 years?
It sounds logical, but the psychology of money dictates otherwise.
Why is that?
Because chasing those maximum returns almost always requires taking on fatal levels of risk. Good investing isn't about earning the absolute highest returns in any given year.
Right, because you can't guarantee that.
Exactly. Those highest returns tend to be one-off hits that are impossible to repeat and honestly often end in disaster. Good investing is about earning pretty good returns that you can consistently repeat for the longest possible period of time.
So it's not about being a genius, it's about consistently not screwing up.
That's exactly it. Letting compounding run wild means you cannot interrupt the math.
Okay.
You have to stay in the game through recessions, crashes, and panics.
So if the entire secret to exponential compounding is literally just surviving and leaving your money alone, what is the mechanism that actually knocks us out of the game? Like, what makes us screw up?
The unexpected. And more specifically, our emotional panicked reaction when the unexpected inevitably happens. This is why the concept of a margin of safety is paramount.
Right.
Housel argues we must essentially worship room for error in our financial lives.
Because the single most important part of every plan is planning on the plan not going according to plan.
You have to eliminate single points of failure.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if your entire financial survival relies on exactly one thing going right, like a single, steady paycheck funding your immediate short-term lifestyle with zero emergency savings, you are essentially counting down the days to a catastrophe.
That is so stressful to think about.
It is, because a medical emergency, a car breaking down, a sudden layoff, everything that can break eventually will break.
Yeah.
Room for error isn't a conservative drag on your returns. It's the shield that allows your returns to actually compound.
And, we don't just face unexpected external events. We break our own plans because we change.
Oh, absolutely.
The reading dives into this psychological phenomenon called the end of history illusion.
This is a wild concept.
It is. Basically, human beings are acutely aware of how much we have changed in our past. Like, a 40-year-old knows they are vastly different from who they were at 20.
Right, obviously.
But for some evolutionary reason, we wildly underestimate how much our personalities, our desires, and our goals will change in the future.
It is a massive cognitive blind spot. Imagining a completely different future self requires an immense amount of cognitive load, so our brains take a shortcut.
We just assume we're done growing.
Exactly. We subconsciously assume that our current personality is our final form. And because of that illusion, we lock ourselves into extreme financial plans.
Right.
A 25-year-old might commit to working 80 hours a week for the next 30 years to afford a massive mansion. Or conversely, they might commit to living on rice and beans in a tiny studio apartment forever to retire at 30.
And then 10 or 15 years later, their future self absolutely despises the rigid decisions their past self made.
Exactly.
The person who wanted the mansion now just wants time with their kids, but they are trapped by the mortgage. That's why extreme financial planning is so dangerous.
We need a margin of safety not just for the stock market, but for our own evolving minds.
Which brings us to the psychological toll of participating in the market at all. The price of admission for all of this growth.
No.
So what does this all mean for you when you log into your retirement account on a random Tuesday and see that your life savings are down 20%?
Which is terrifying.
It is. But the framework offered here is brilliant. Nothing is free. Every single thing in life has a price.
Yeah.
When you buy a tangible object, the price tag is obvious. But the price of successful long-term investing isn't paid in dollars and cents. The currency is volatility, fear, doubt, and regret.
And because that price tag isn't clearly labeled, most people actively try to avoid paying it.
Right.
When the market drops, they feel actual physical pain. They panic and sell their investments because they fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the cost they are experiencing.
So think of it like this. Imagine you are driving on the highway and you get pulled over for reckless driving.
Okay.
The officer hands you a massive traffic ticket. That is a fine.
Right, a punishment.
Exactly. It's a punishment for doing something wrong, and your goal is to change your behavior so you never get a fine again.
Makes sense.
Now, imagine you go to an incredible world-class theme park, and you pay $100 at the gate. That is a fee.
I see.
It's the expected price of admission for a great ride. If you view a 30% market drop as a fine, your brain tells you that you did something wrong.
And so you panic.
You will panic, try to fix the quote-unquote mistake, and sell out at the exact bottom of the market.
But if you can reframe that volatility as a fee, the natural expected price of admission for decades of compounding growth, you can psychologically stomach the ride.
Right.
You recognize that the fear and uncertainty are just the toll you pay for financial freedom. You convince yourself the fee is worth it.
That reframing changes volatility from a catastrophic disaster into just a standard feature of the system.
It does raise a critical behavioral question, though.
What's that?
How do you actually stay calm and pay that fee when everyone else around you is panicking?
That's the hard part.
It is. The review quotes Napoleon, who famously defined a military genius as the man who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is losing his mind.
I love that quote.
To do that financially, you have to know exactly what game you're playing.
Because market bubbles and panics usually happen when long-term investors start blindly taking cues from short-term traders.
Exactly.
Like, if I am investing money for my retirement in 30 years, why on earth would I let my emotions be dictated by a day trader trying to make a quick buck on a meme stock by Friday afternoon?
You're playing completely different games.
With completely different rules.
The anchor of financial psychology is realizing that rational people can see the world through an entirely different lens than your own.
Right.
You have to clearly define your own time horizon, establish your own personal definition of enough, and aggressively ignore the actions of people who are playing a different game.
Okay, let's synthesize this journey. We started by looking at money as a rigid science of physics, and I think we've completely dismantled that.
We definitely have.
Money is a messy, deeply human, soft skill. True wealth isn't the flashy car or the designer clothes. Wealth is the money you don't see, providing hidden options. The ultimate luxury isn't a material object at all. It's waking up and having total control over your own time.
The best dividend.
We learned that building the highest possible returns is a trap. Survival and steady compounding beat high-risk chasing every single time. And the gut-wrenching volatility of the market. It's not a fine for doing something wrong. It's just the necessary fee of admission.
It is a complete paradigm shift.
It really is.
And if we take this logic that wealth is what you don't see, that the secret to compounding is time and survival, and that volatility is a fee rather than a fine, it leaves us with a fascinating implication to mull over.
Okay, I'm ready.
How does this framework change how you view the non-financial aspects of your life?
Oh, wow.
Think about your deepest relationships or your long-term career trajectory. What if the arguments, the temporary setbacks, and the frustrations you experience in your personal life aren't a fine indicating that your relationship is failing?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
What if those hard moments are simply the fee of admission for a deep, compounding, lifelong bond?
Wow. That puts a completely different spin on surviving a hard day. You aren't being punished. You are just paying the toll for something that will compound beautifully over the next few decades.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking at the world, your choices, and maybe even your relationships through this new psychological lens. We will catch you on the next